Okay, welcome back everyone to another episode of In Depth with David. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of talking about the Red Sox, we're going to be recapping the Patriots draft selections in the 2021 NFL Draft. And I'm joined by someone who's not named Ricky. He's actually named Joe. He's one of my good friends from high school. How are you doing today, Joe?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good, not too bad. So, what are your general takeaways from the drafts this year for the Patriots? Obviously, this was a big monumental draft for the team. Can't have another losing season like last year. Obviously, it was just kind of a slap in the face the way it ended with Brady and Gronk, two cornerstones of the Patriots franchise for over a decade or so, just going to the Bucks and winning the title. So, before we get into details, how did you think the draft went for the team these last few days?
I feel like you said, it definitely was going to be a big draft. We all know Belichick. He wasn't going to let us have another losing season or a bad season. Like, we're not used to that. We've been spoiled our whole lives, and you just know this was going to be a different season. Like pre-draft, you had them going on their huge spending spree. So I feel like everyone got the sense that with this draft, it was, we had the 15th pick in the first round, which we're not really accustomed to. We're accustomed to later in the first rounds, where not saying there aren't any good prospects that fall down that far, but not just as many. Cream of the crop are usually 1 to 18 and so on. But yeah, I thought it was a good draft. They hit on some key needs that I thought were really big.
I agree with that. I thought we had a good draft right when we needed it. Um, we'll certainly get into the picks, but I thought this draft is really telling for both the present and the future of this franchise. I think a lot of the players we picked are either going to be immediate impacts or are going to be replacing some people who are getting older down the line. But I thought this was one of Belichick's better drafts, and we really needed it, as I said at the beginning. So we'll just get into all the picks. The Patriots picked eight players in total. The very first pick was on night one, where we had the 15th pick, as Joe just said. And we went and selected Mac Jones, the quarterback from Alabama. Obviously, they just won the national championship. Big reason was because of Mac's performance all season. But before we get to that, there was a lot of lead up to the draft, in that there were hints that the Patriots were talking to the Falcons or the Lions or the Panthers about potentially trading up. And a lot of people thought we had some serious interest in players like Kyle Pitts or even Justin Fields. Did you think at any point we were going to trade up, or did you feel like we were just going to stand pat at 15 the whole time?
So I knew from past drafts that Belichick wasn't one to trade up, but more or less trade back. And I had a feeling that it could have been another one of those drafts where they traded back. But as it started getting closer and closer to the draft, I honestly thought that I wasn't going to say we are going to trade up to 4, like I heard people were saying when we were talking to the Falcons. But I did have a small inkling that we're going to trade up to anywhere from 7 to 9 to try and get Fields in case. We all heard the rumors too that Mac Jones is going to be going 3 to the 49ers. Obviously, that didn't happen. But I don't know. I didn't really, there wasn't really a big thing that I thought we were going to be trading up. But it's done with now. I like the pick. I thought it was good.
See, I thought leading up to it that we were going to trade up. I heard Pat McAfee, who's another great podcast, if any of the viewers want to check him out, he said we might go to number 4 to trade up with the Falcons to maybe even get someone like Kyle Pitts, where if we had 3 tight ends, Johnny Smith, Hunter Henry, and Kyle Pitts, that would have just broken the game of football. So I thought that would have been something cool that we could have done, but I didn't think it was too realistic. And then obviously we heard all week leading up to the draft that we would either trade with the Lions or the Panthers at 7 or 8 to try and get Fields, as you just said, because a lot of people thought we were really interested in him. But after the draft, I kind of thought, maybe this was his idea all along, Belichick's idea, where we would just stand pat at 15. And he didn't really want Fields that badly. He was more impressed with Mac Jones than anyone. So I'm starting to think that maybe the plan all along was just to hope Mac Jones fell to us at 15 instead of him getting picked at 3 by the Niners. So, yeah, if you want to talk about the pick for a little bit, obviously Mac Jones didn't play too much his sophomore year. I think he only had 6 pass attempts because I want to say they still had Hurts or Tua on the team. And then Obviously, his last 2 years in Alabama, he's done a lot better. This year, he just capped it off with a 4,500-yard season, 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and he really did a good job of making Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle into who they are today, and the reason why they were high draft picks this year. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, look, we needed a quarterback. Obviously, Cam Newton didn't have the best year last year, and he's probably not going to be a long-term option. Jarrett Stidham just hasn't really been impressing since we picked him a couple years ago. So why not throw someone else into the mix? Obviously, the reports are, and Bill said this in his press conference after the day one of the draft, that Cam's going to be the starter next year still. But do you think there's any outside chance that either Cam is the long-term quarterback if he impresses this year, or Mac Jones can maybe surprise some people in training camp and steal the job?
I certainly think that, without a doubt, I don't see Cam Newton being a long-term option. I mean, he's on the plus side of 30, and I mean, he had a shaky season last year. I mean, it could have gone different ways if he didn't get COVID or everything else, but we're not going to go into that. But I certainly see Mac Jones trying to take spotlight. I mean, it is like his first training camp in the NFL. You know, could take some prospects like a little while to take in the lights and everything. But I see Mac Jones being able to try and perform from day one and trying to steal the job from Cam. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, you're getting a full OTA with Cam, who's going to, finally get acclimated with the system. Maybe that plays benefit to him. But I mean, even if Mac Jones doesn't, win the job, I still think that it'd be good for him to learn behind Newton for a year, groom him into a starter. Because I mean, I think Stidham's done whether we trade him or let him play out the rest of his contract. I don't see him making a competitive jump at things.
I agree. And I mean, it's definitely not the end of the world if we have Mac Jones just sit on the bench for a year and learn behind Cam, like you just said. I mean, it's very rare. I mean, we see it happen with running backs a lot, which we're going to touch into, but people like James White, Shane Vereen, Damian Harris, they all didn't get a chance their first year because it took them a year to learn the system. But once they got going and got their chance, I mean, that year of just sitting on the bench and learning just really paid off. So if that's something that happens with Mac, I'm not opposed to it. And I think that's what will likely happen. Cam's contract is structured in a way where, yeah, maybe he'll become the backup at some point, but we're not paying him 14 million just to cut him at the end of training camp. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll be Cam's job to lose, and I expect him to be the starter in week one and probably throughout the rest of the year unless things get really bad. But other than that, I mean, do you like the fit moving forward for Mac? Because obviously he's a pocket passer, and the Patriots just experienced with Cam Newton being more of a mobile option. And we just brought in some people: Nelson Aguilar, a deep threat; Kendrick Bourne, who's an intermediate threat and a red zone threat; Johnny Smith, who's very versatile; and Hunter Henry, who's just more of a traditional tight end. So, do you think Mac Jones can succeed with those weapons once he gets the chance to start?
I certainly think that. I mean, last year, we were bound to have a bad year. I mean, we've been spoiled for so long, but I think Mac Jones will fit in. One of the stats that really jumped off the board at me is last year, we weren't the greatest red zone team, and that's by no fault. I mean, they had like the Seahawks game, but I mean, Cam on the last play that could have tied or gone ahead. Everyone saw that play coming, and that's no shame in that. But Mac Jones last season had in the red zone had 20 passing touchdowns to 0 interceptions, which I think that number speaks for itself. Like, I mean, he knows how to read defenses well. And I mean, watching the college football that I do, I saw that he can make elite reads. And I mean, he knows how to scan and make the right throw.
Sure. So moving on after that, the Patriots had the second round pick in day two of the draft, where it's rounds 2 and 3 selections, and they ended up trading up to get Christian Barmore. They made a trade with the Bengals to move up from pick 46 to pick 38, and they drafted the second straight Alabama guy, Christian Barmore, who's a defensive tackle. I'm looking at his draft profile right now. He's 6'4", 310 pounds. He has a great, very explosive first 2 steps. He's gotten a lot of sacks in his last few games when he's gotten a chance. Some weaknesses are too many missed tackles. Obviously, there are some things about some off the field issues that that's like a lot of teams pass on him. I'm honestly surprised. I think we talked about this too. I'm surprised that he fell to the second round. I thought he would have been a first round selection. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Are you surprised that he was still sitting there at pick 38?
Yeah, I was really surprised. Like, I mean, we talked about it. I could have seen him going late in the first round. I mean, he's an elite talent at D tackle. I mean, he is I was surprised he was there, but I like the pick. I mean, like you said, Belichick and Saban have a great history together. So I mean, they have and Belichick has inside scoop on the Alabama guys. And I mean, I like the pick. I saw that his NFL comparison was Marcel Darius, who I certainly can see that in him watching some of his highlights after we drafted him. He's a big bull rusher. He has the very good foot quickness to trying to evade blockers. And I mean, he just has the powerful move to bulldoze some people over. And hopefully, help out the front seven that, didn't really get too much pressure on quarterbacks late in the season last year when we needed it.
Right. I mean, yeah, we got the ball run all over us last year, and as you just said, the pass rush was terrible. So hopefully he can provide a boost. The only thing I'm just really worried about is reports were coming out after we selected him that the reason why he fell is there are some off the field issues with him where I don't know, they didn't specify, but I'm assuming maybe he like partied too much or whatever, or just didn't take his job seriously at times in Alabama. So that gets me to thinking, I mean, I hope he's just not another bust. Obviously, it's way too early to tell, but the reason why he fell seems to be because of his not taking his job seriously. So I hope this doesn't come back to bite us, but I don't know. I just hope maybe things will change now that he's in a more serious culture in New England. But the fact that he kind of fell a bit scares me. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Are you as concerned as I am about his off the field issues that have been reported? Because
I mean,
I don't want him to turn into like another Dominic Beasley or Malcolm Brown, in other words, where he's just a wasted first round pick or second rounder.
yeah, I certainly, got the sense that that's why he was dropping was because of off-field issues. But I certainly, we went through it a little bit, not really like off-field issues, but last year with Winovich, saying the stuff about, disagreeing with coaches last year. Belichick doesn't really have time and space for all the antics. So, I mean, I can certainly see, seeing so far, Barmore says he's excited to be in New England, but I still see him and Belichick having a sit down like right away, just saying that he's going to be on a tight leash and they're going to monitor him until they gain his trust.
For sure. But nonetheless, he's a great player, very explosive. Obviously, one of the weaknesses was he tends to beat his own drum in terms of how he plays. He doesn't really listen to the coach's advice and just kind of goes about his job in his own way. But he's going to step in and he's going to do great. And I mean, we need defensive line depth. I mean, yeah, we brought in Henry Anderson and Devon Godshocks, and we have people like Lawrence Guy. We did lose Adam Butler, but he's a rookie. He already has a lot of potential, and he's going to be able to do some stuff for us for at least a few years if given the chance. So, very next pick was in the third round, and it was the 96th pick overall, and we picked defensive end Ronnie Perkins from Oklahoma. I'm not going to lie, this pick kind of surprised me. I didn't think we really needed a defensive end because obviously one of the bigger acquisitions by New England this offseason was Matt Judon. Obviously, as you just said, we have Chase Winovich, Josh Uche, who's hoping to take a leap in his second year, and then we brought back Kyle Van Noy as well. So I don't know if you want to talk about this for a little bit, what your thoughts are on Perkins, but I'm kind of surprised you picked a defensive end in the earlier part of the draft.
Yeah, I certainly was surprised with the pick. I knew front seven was definitely going to be a big need. We signed Henry Anderson, like you said, and Gottschalk. But that's like a big thing for Belichick is he's trying to make sure that what we had last year won't be a repeat in future years. And yeah, it was a surprising pick, but certainly, the guy jumps off the charts and he's got elite speed out of the end position. looking at some of his stats, like he had 24 tackles for loss, 11 and a half sacks over his last 19 games, which speaks for itself that he's a speed rusher. And I mean, he has a high motors from what I see.
Yeah, I'm also looking at his strengths and I see, drives through quarterbacks on sacks with vengeance. This is just on NFL.com, the report on him. Slips and slides off and around blocks. One of his weaknesses are physical tackles, knock him around. But do you think Belichick picked him to maybe create some competition at those edge rusher positions? Because obviously, as we just talked about, Chase Winovich didn't really have the best year last year, both professionally and in the locker room. So do you think that this could be a way to either light a fire under Chase or just, create some competition at that position?
I certainly think like a little bit of both, create some competition, like you said, try and light a fire under Winovich. But I mean, also, maybe Belichick was also thinking like, try and, have a nice 1-2 punch with Perkins and Winovich on the outside to, scare some offensive line.
Right. I mean, I think we did a great job bolstering up the defensive line in this draft. Obviously, with Barmore, brought in Judon in the offseason, Winovich, Van Noy, and now bringing in Perkins as well. I mean, if they can all contribute, then this will hopefully be one of the stronger positions on the team next year after it was a weakness last season. So I don't hate the pick. I was just genuinely surprised about it. And so is Perkins. He actually did an interview where he said he did one Zoom call with the Pats and so many more calls with other teams. But clearly, Belichick sees something in him. So now we move on to the next selection, and it was in the fourth round, and the Patriots selected Ramondre Stevenson, a running back who is also from Oklahoma. So what were your thoughts on this pick here? Me, quickly, another surprising pick for me. I didn't think we really needed to pick a running back, but let's hear what you have to say on it.
I mean, for me, I've talked to people before, and I just feel like in most teams' cases, they want to try and draft at least one running back in every draft just to, get some fresh legs, see what they bring. But I mean, with this pick, I really hadn't heard much about him, but like looking at his pre-draft analysis, like and then compared him to Gus Edwards, and while watching some of his stats, he sort of reminds me of a little quicker and more powerful LeGarrette Blount, which would be nice if we, if he turns out to be like LeGarrette Blount. I mean, we all grew accustomed to watching LeGarrette Blount drag defenders with him while running. And I mean, he looks like a very, big body. I mean, he's on the little bit of a short side for 5'11", but he is 227. And I mean, his strengths, like looking at him, I mean, his running style is very belligerent. And I mean, it says like, he's a big guy, and he's has some very surprising but adjustable bursts that he knows how to control his speeds and when to slow down and when to go full speed.
I agree. I mean, this is an interesting pick because I think the LeGarrette Blount comparison is perfect. He's 6 foot, 231. He's more of the only problem is he's more of an east-west runner instead of a north-south runner, which if you can get him to do that, I think that'd be great. And especially with their bolstered offensive line, if we can just get him to run through, like I think he'd be a great goal line threat when given the chance. Another weakness I see is that he kind of fumbles a little bit too much, but his hands are also soft enough so he can work out of the backfield according to NFL.com. So maybe he can be somewhat of a pass catching back as well. A lot of people are saying these websites I'm looking at that maybe down the line he could replace Sony Michel, since I don't think we've picked up his 5th-year option yet. Do you think that could be in the cards, him taking over for Sony?
Yeah, I certainly see it. Like, I mean, I've had conversations with people before about Michelle. I mean, last year wasn't a great year at the beginning, and then he had his injury. But I mean, the end of the year, he really turned it on. I feel like, that could make a good case for anyone looking for a running back that, I mean, he has experience. He had the great playoff run when we had our last Super Bowl win versus the Rams. I mean, I could see it as a possibility, us trading Michelle before the season starts. And I mean, just paving the way for Stevenson.
I agree. And I don't hate the pick because it adds to another strong part of our team, which has always been our running backs. Michelle, as you said, I feel like maybe his best days with us at least are behind him. Obviously, he was injured for a good portion of last year, but he turned it on. I still feel like him and Harris can be a good 1-2 punch on the team. Obviously, we know what he did in 2018, and 2019 was a decent year, but wouldn't surprise me if the Patriots move on in a different direction. But I feel like at some point Stevenson will get his chance. But it's a good crowded backfield now with Harris, Michelle, JJ Taylor, Stevenson, Bolden on special teams is coming back after taking a year off. So Belichick just did good by adding to a already strong running back corpse on our team. So the next selection was our fifth round selection, 177th overall, and we selected linebacker Cameron McGrone from Michigan. So there's a lot of question marks with this guy. There's a lot of question marks, honestly, at the linebacking position for New England. Obviously, it looks like Dante Hightower is going to come back this year after taking the year off due to COVID. But he is going to be 31, so he's getting older. And Cameron McGrone does have a lot of injuries in his past. He has a big injury history, but the Patriots just kind of took a flyer on him in the fifth round. Some of his strengths are he has a good build, he has a good understanding of angles to attack at, but he doesn't have much game action. That probably is attributed to how many injuries he's accumulated so far in his career, and he does lose track of his coverage duties at times. So, what do you think about this pick? I mean, I kind of think it's just high risk, high reward because it is a fifth rounder, but part of this is maybe signaling to me that Hightower's time in New England is going to be over sooner rather than later, and maybe we're just preparing for the future. But just what are your thoughts on this pick right here?
I mean, like you said, it's sort of taking a flyer on this one, but I mean, like you said, could mean Hightower's time is gone. I mean, like you said, I mean, looking at some of his negatives, tends to lose track of people in coverage, which I mean, maybe they think it's a good thing drafting him. Hightower coming back and he is the leader on defense, trying to have McGrone get like acclimated to the defense and learn under Hightower, who's been a great captain and a great leader for the Pats for a while. The only thing that really concerns me is just, he doesn't really show a lot of consistency in his pursuit of tackles, and he's not too big of a big bodied linebacker like we're accustomed to.
Right. And one of the other weaknesses I'm looking at is he's got burned too many times for too many touchdowns, which obviously is a little bit of a red flag for me. But again, it's a fifth round pick. There aren't many high expectations for someone who goes in the fifth round, but this could be a decent selection. Obviously, I think I just saw somewhere that Bill said right after he drafted him that he could no, he could not really play much this year due to his injuries, and we may be more looking at him having a bigger impact in 2022 or 2023. But again, we'll see what happens. He has the instincts and the range to become a starting caliber player in New England. That all depends on what happens with Hightower. Obviously, we have Bentley at that position as well, but we'll see. I mean, a lot of question marks moving forward, definitely at that position for the team. And then in the sixth round, we had two selections, but our first selection in the sixth round at 188th overall was for safety Joshua Bledsoe from Missouri. Obviously, the two safeties for New England last year primarily were Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, and then also Devin McCourty. Patrick Chung was supposed to come back this year, but he changed his mind and decided to retire. So what do you think about Joshua Bledsoe? I have his build right here, 5'11", 204, very strong, good communication on defense, which obviously Belichick's going to love. But some of his weaknesses are that his movement is choppy and inefficient, and he's also someone who got burned too much for too many touchdowns. But I don't hate the pick because it's another late round, low risk, high reward, and we need depth at the safety position with McCourty only getting older. And, we don't know if Kyle Duggar is going to have another solid season like he did last year. So what do you think about this selection?
I mean, I certainly, I like it. Like you said, he's a good communicator, which Belichick loves. And I mean, I feel like, they understand that McCourty's getting up to the plus side of his age. And, I mean, we saw it a little bit last year with him getting burnt a few times. So, I mean, they think maybe, they said they think Chung could have like some sort of helping with the safeties this year. So, I mean, good guy to learn from for Bledsoe would be learning from Chung. And if he helps and McCourty, I mean, two great safeties who had great Pat's careers. And I mean, nobody better to learn under. I feel like it'd be, like you said, high risk, high reward. But I mean, who knows? I mean, he could be. Nobody really wasn't really sure what we were getting last year out of Duggar with a second round. Nobody really heard of him, and I mean, sort of jumped on the scene. So maybe it's sort of like the same thing with a 6th round flyer.
Right. And Duggar put together a good rookie season where he accumulated a lot of tackles, and we'll see what Bledsoe can do if given the opportunity. I'd suspect maybe at the beginning, at least for this year, he's probably more of a special teams guy, but I'm not sure. So to see what he can do. And then 9 picks later in the 6th round, 197th overall, the Patriots selected offensive tackle William Sherman from Colorado. He's 6'3", 304 pounds. Not too much on I mean, one of his strengths, loose hips and plus timing for workup blocks. He works his positioning well off the block. Some of its weaknesses, way too hurried out of his stance, struggles to catch up and redirect the inside counters. But I don't hate this pick because obviously the Patriots have prided themselves years and years on bolstering that offensive line and making sure they have as much depth there as possible. Obviously, this pick was probably made due to Trent Brown and Isaiah Wynn both being unrestricted free agents after the season. And I would find it more unlikely than not that both of them are back next year in 2022. So maybe we could be looking at him fighting for a spot there in the future. But for the moment, it's depth. I mean, we have him now, Justin Herron, Corey Cunningham, and Yanni Kajuste as backups on the roster, and also Ted Karras. So what do you think about Belichick picking another offensive lineman here and yet another draft?
I feel like it's a good one. I also saw he has some versatility that he was moved around a lot in college. So I mean, he has experience on on tackle, but he also has experience for guard, which I mean, a lot last year we had problems with our line staying healthy. So I mean, it'd be good if if he shows enough in preseason and in training camp that he can play at a high level. And I mean, if somebody gets hurt, then he'd be able to slide right into any position.
I agree. And someone like Wynn, who has a big injury history, regardless, if he ends up, hopefully he doesn't, but if he ends up getting injured again, I feel like someone like Sherman could step in and hopefully do a serviceable job. And then with the final pick in the Patriots draft this year, they selected Trey Nixon, a wide receiver from Central Florida. He's the 242nd pick in the draft overall. Just a typical Belichick wide receiver, small on the smaller side, 6 foot, 187 pounds. Some strengths about him: active hands and sudden feet for press release. He works back well to his quarterback. A couple weaknesses are he had a shoulder injury that really deteriorated his season last year, and he has almost no experience in special teams, which is somewhere I imagine Belichick's going to be playing him a lot this season because he's likely going to be playing behind Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar's and Jacoby Myers. So I don't know. This pick, I mean, it's a whatever pick. 7th-round picks are always a crapshoot. It's just more so like, let's just pick someone in this draft. That's how most teams think at this point. But a few of them have obviously made impacts. Obviously, Antonio Brown was a 6th or 7th rounder, and Julian Edelman was obviously a 7th rounder, did amazing for New England in his career. But I thought it was a little disappointing that we waited until the 7th round to get a wide receiver. I thought this was more of a bigger need because while we did bring in Bourne and Aguilar, you don't know how they're going to be. I mean, obviously Bourne did solid in the San Francisco system, and we're hoping he breaks out this year. And then Aguilar finally put together a great season last year with Vegas after a ton of tumultuous seasons in Philly. But I don't know. We'll see how Trey Nixon does, but I just thought we would have gone after a wide receiver a bit earlier.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I wish we went for a receiver earlier, but I think I have a good feeling about him. Like I'm looking at his comparison, and he's compared to Robbie Anderson, but also this Pats draft was the last one for Ernie Adams, and not many people know what he does, but he's the one who helps out with like most of the scouting and various jobs around the Pats. This was his last draft after being with Belichick since the 70s. And I mean, he physically made this selection, and he said that he had a great feeling about him. So, I mean, hopefully Ernie Adams is right with his last ever draft and, hits on this one, which would be a big one.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? The only thing is, whenever I hear Patriots drafting a seventh round wide receiver, I have like flashbacks to when we picked Devin Lucien all those years ago, and obviously he's not been in the league for a few years. But I'm rooting for Trey Nixon. We need as much wide receiver depth as we can get, and maybe he doesn't do much this year. Maybe he's more of a special teams guy, like a Gunnar Olszewski. But we'll see how he can do. So. Those were all the picks, but just a few follow up questions. If you had to pick one of the selections the Patriots made this year to have the biggest impact on the 2021 team, who would it be?
I think it's going to be Christian Barmore. I think he's going to have I think he's going to make an impact right away. I feel like the off-field antics, I feel like are going to be in the past, and I feel like Belichick's really going to help change and make sure he wants to come to work every day and work. And I mean, just going to help bolster that front seven and cause havoc in the run game and hopefully bring some pressure to the quarterback.
That was going to be my pick too. Obviously, Mac Jones, it's looking like he's going to sit the first year, and a lot of these other people are just going to be backups at the moment. Like Stevenson, he's probably going to have to sit behind at least Harris, Michelle, Bolden. Probably JJ Taylor is going to get another chance this year. Perkins, we'll see what he does at the defensive end position. It all depends on, I think, how well of a training camp he has competing against people like Judon, Van Noy, Winovich, Uche. But I think Barmore, I mean, he's going to step in and he has a chance to be a starter. Obviously, we just lost Adam Butler. If he can play well, I think Belichick's going to give him more snaps. He's a three down guy. Obviously, we talked about how impressed we are with him, how he can explode right through the D line. He's gotten a lot of sacks in his career when given the chance at Bama. I think I even read somewhere that he won college football playoff MVP a couple years ago. So the potential is there. It just all depends on if he takes his job seriously. But I hope someone like if the thing is, if Saban couldn't do it to him, I hope someone like Belichick can, where he sits him down and says, look, you're in the NFL now. Like, let's take this seriously. So as long as he, behaves himself, I feel like he can be an immediate contributor on this team because obviously people on that defensive line, like we talked about, Lawrence Guy is only getting older. Henry Anderson and Devon Godchaux, while they're decent, they're more role players. Whereas we selected someone in Barmore in the second round, hoping that he has the chance to be an elite talent on this team moving forward. So I think that's fair. I think Barmore is going to have the best chance to make an impact on the team next year, and I hope he does. So,
Right.
final question. If you had to give this draft a letter grade for the Patriots, what letter grade would you give it?
I've seen a lot of like grades on the patch drafts, and I would give this one a B. I think they hit on a lot of needs that they had. The only thing I wish is I just wish we had drafted a receiver earlier. Like I feel like the safety pick, like yeah, you always need safeties. I feel like the safety pick could have been pushed to a sixth or seventh round, take a flyer, and maybe try and get one of the later round receivers that were ranked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think a B or a B plus is fair. I'm glad we drafted a quarterback in the first round because obviously Belichick notorious for. I think the earliest he drafted a quarterback before Mac was Jimmy G in the second round in 14. So in a position where we really needed an heir apparent to Brady now after seeing how Cam performed last year and not being sold on Stidham, I think it was crucial that Belichick picked Mac in the first round. But the other picks I'm surprised with how early we picked them, like you said. Obviously, you know, uh, Perkins, a defensive end. Did we really need to pick him in the third? No. Running back, do we really need one in the fourth? No. I wish, as you said, we picked a wide receiver earlier, but that's the only reason why I really give it a B. I think all these guys that we have are going to provide depth in one way or another. I just wish, again, we picked a wide receiver maybe in one of the middle rounds instead of waiting until our final draft pick to select one. But, I think, again, this was one of Belichick's better drafts. I could imagine all these people contributing to the team, you know, not maybe not this year, but 2022 or 2023 when spots are open. So that's really how I look at it. Any final thoughts you want to talk about on this draft before I wrap it up?
No, I mean, I think it was a, good all around draft. Like you were saying, we obviously knew we needed to draft a quarterback. And I mean, I just feel like, give it like this season, Mac Jones gets groomed under Newton. I just feel like he's gonna take the league by storm in year two.
I hope so too. So that's going to wrap it up for this podcast. Those were the Patriots draft picks. We'll see what happens with them. Maybe they'll have an impact this year in 2022 or 2023. But nonetheless, a solid draft for the Patriots in our opinions. Hopefully, this can help us turn around the franchise back to how they once were with Tom Brady under center. So that'll be an interesting season nonetheless for the NFL. A lot of good prospects in this year's draft, and we'll see how they all do. So before I end it, I just want to remind you that I will be doing a podcast tonight with Ricky where we are going to be recapping the Red Sox season series against the Rangers. Celtics recaps are coming. Bruins recaps are coming. We're definitely going to have Joe back on their show in some capacity where we recap some sort of sports talk, and we'll figure that out for sure. But nonetheless, I want to thank everyone for watching this whenever you do. Absorb this like button. I'm no longer Sponge 4-in-1, but got to keep that brand going. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Let us know in the comment section below what you liked about this recap, what you agree with us on, what you disagree with us on. And yeah, that's going to do it. So thanks everyone for watching. Have a good one. Thanks again, Joe, for joining me. And I will be talking to you guys in a few hours. I will. So have a good one. See ya.